The life vest kept pushing me upward. Normally, that's exactly what you want, but I wasn't floating toward open air. I was underneath an 8-person raft, and every time the vest lifted me, it pressed my back and shoulders against the rubber bottom above me. I could feel the raft flexing as people moved on top of it. I could hear paddles striking water. Well, at least I think I could. Under there, every sound had collapsed into one deep, violent roar. I reached forward, searching for an edge. My hand slid across the wet rubber. I kicked hard and moved maybe a few feet. For 1 second, the darkness became lighter. Then the current caught my legs, turned my body, and dragged me back directly under the center of the raft. The vest lifted me again. My shoulders struck the bottom. I tried another direction. Same result. Swim, get pulled back, hit the raft. Swim again, get pulled back. My chest was already beginning to burn. I didn't even know how long I'd been under. I only knew that the air in my lungs was almost gone. And eventually, whether I was ready or not, my body was going to take another breath. A few years earlier, I would never have imagined myself in this situation. I grew up in New York, and depending on where you grew up there, it's possible to spend most of your life surrounded by millions of people without developing much of a relationship with the outdoors. Nature to me was something you visited. You drove to it, looked around, took a few pictures, and then returned to somewhere with pavement and reliable cell service. But after moving to Pennsylvania, I started to try more things: hiking, camping, anything that felt like an actual adventure instead of another weekend doing the same routine. That was around the time I became part of a new friend group. One day they invited me to whitewater rafting. I'd never been, of course. Honestly, I didn't even know what the experience involved until they showed me pictures. People in bright helmets and life jackets paddling through violent white water while the raft bent around rocks. Looked completely insane, which for some reason made me want to do it more. We drove out early because there was a required orientation before the trip. That was when someone said we would be rafting through Class 3 rapids. Everyone else seemed to understand what that meant, except me. So I searched it on my phone. A few seconds later, I looked over at my friend Jake. "Bro, I don't know what I'm doing. Class 3 looks insane." Jake laughed. "You'll be fine. It's nothing, I promise." Jake really could make anything sound manageable. A mountain could be collapsing directly toward us, and he'd probably say, "Relax, it's mostly going the other way." His confidence did calm me down a bit. Then the instructor began explaining what to do if something went wrong. "Communication and teamwork are vital out there. Listen to your guide and stay alert. There are some rough sections." Then he gave us one specific warning. "If you're about to collide with another raft, do not lean away. Lean into the collision. I repeat, do not lean away. Lean into the collision." That instruction stayed in my head. Unfortunately, knowing what to do and convincing your body to do it are not always the same thing. After the orientation, we took a bus toward the launch point. When we stepped out, the first thing I noticed was the crowd. There were people everywhere. Bright helmets, yellow paddles, life jackets, guides shouting over each other, rafts being carried toward the water. More rafts were already floating near the shoreline. I honestly pictured us alone somewhere. Instead, it looked like an amusement park attraction without any tracks controlling where people went. "Is it normally this crowded?" I asked. Christian looked toward the water. "Never this bad." "Capitalism strikes again," Annie said. I laughed, but the crowd made me seriously nervous. There were enough dangers in the river without adding dozens of inexperienced people swinging paddles around. Still, we were already here. We tightened our life jackets, adjusted our helmets, listened to a few final instructions, and climbed into the raft. I was positioned near the back. The rubber was already wet and cold beneath me. My paddle handle kept slipping slightly in my hands. The river smelled like mud, stone, and wet equipment. At first, the trip was surprisingly calm. We drifted away from the launch point and began finding our rhythm. Forward, stop, left side, right side. The guide called commands and we just followed them. Then the water began moving faster. The first serious drop lifted the front of the raft and slammed us down hard enough to throw cold water all over everyone. We yelled. Not from fear, not yet. This was still excitement. After that came narrow channels between rocks, hard turns, the raft dipping low on one side before rocking back. A boulder appeared directly ahead of us, and for a moment I was so sure we were going to hit it. But everyone paddled together, the guide pulled us around it, and we missed it by a few feet. Each successful section made us feel more capable. We were actually working together. We were avoiding the worst obstacles. We were starting to believe that maybe this Class 3 wasn't as bad as it looked online. That confidence lasted until we approached a section they called the washing machine. That is what I remember it being called, at least. I'm not going to pretend I understand the mechanics of it at all. From what I could see, there were two large boulders with rough water between them. The current didn't seem to move clearly downstream there. Parts of it rotated. There was a slight waterfall just beneath it, maybe a few feet. Water folded into itself and surged back in different directions. It looked less like a river flowing forward and more like something kind of churning in place. As we got closer, we saw another raft stuck near the left side. They were caught close to one of the rocks. Some of them were paddling, but others were looking around like they didn't know which command to follow. Our guide began shouting. We yelled too. Move! Paddle! Get out of the way! They looked back at us, but either they couldn't move or they just didn't understand how quickly we were approaching. The gap between us closed, 30 feet, 20. The roar of the water grew louder. People began shouting over one another. Paddles struck the river out of rhythm. Our raft turned slightly sideways. I looked at the trapped raft and I remembered the orientation. Don't lean away, don't lean away. Lean toward, lean toward. So I shifted forward. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. But at the final second, when the other raft filled my vision, something in my body overruled everything I'd been told. And then I leaned backwards. The rafts collided. There was a hard rubber impact. The side beneath me lifted. My feet lost contact. Then there was no raft, no sky, no shouting, just cold. The river pulled me under immediately. The shock took my breath for a second, but I still knew which direction was up, or at least I thought I did. My life vest lifted me rapidly. Instead of breaking the surface, my back struck something soft and heavy. I looked up. It was the underside of the raft. There was almost nothing to see though. Dark rubber was just above me, gray-green water around me, white bubbles flashing past my face. I pushed against the raft and tried to swim toward what looked like a brighter edge. My fingers scraped across the slick bottom. I kicked. For a moment, at least I moved, but then the water caught me and turned my hips. The brightness disappeared. I was dragged back into the darkness. The life vest forced me upward again. My shoulder pressed into the raft. I reached in another direction. There was no edge, only rubber. I tried to move sideways, using the raft itself to guide me. My palms just kept sliding uselessly across it. I could feel impacts from above, feet shifting, people scrambling, the raft bending and snapping back into shape. They knew I fell, but I had no idea whether they knew I was directly beneath them. I kicked harder, trying to signal them I was right beneath them. This time, my head moved out from under the raft for just half a second. I saw a blurred daylight through the water. Then the current pulled my legs backwards. My body twisted again. The vest caught under the raft again and pinned me upward again. That was when panic took over completely. Until then, I'd been trying to solve the problem, find an edge, follow the light, push away from the rubber, something. Now there was only one thought. Get out. I thrashed. I wasted air. My hands slapped against the underside. I kicked in directions I couldn't see, and every attempt ended up right in the same place, back underneath, back to the center, pressed upward, still trapped. The pressure in my chest became painful. My lungs were not just asking for air anymore, they were begging for it. I tried to hold on. I told myself I only needed one more push, one more direction, one more chance to find the outside. I stopped moving for a second, trying to preserve whatever air I had left. but the current kept rolling my body beneath the raft. There was no stillness under there, no place to rest. The river didn't care that I was tired. It didn't care that I was scared. It didn't even seem to recognize that I was there. My chest contracted. I forced my mouth closed. Another contraction, this time stronger. My vision became narrowing. The darkness beneath the raft felt even heavier. I remember thinking very clearly, this is actually happening. I am going to drown underneath this raft while everyone is still sitting directly above me. Then my body stopped waiting for permission. My mouth opened, cold water rushed in. The sensation shocked every part of me. My eyes opened wide. My body moved before I could think. I pushed away from the raft and kicked harder than I'd ever done in any of my earlier attempts. No plan. I didn't even know which direction I was in. All I did was follow slight change in pressure, a faint brightness, anything that felt different. My hand reached forward, nothing. Then again. This time, my arm actually cleared the edge of the raft. The pressure above me disappeared. My hand broke the surface. Someone grabbed my wrist and another grabbed my life vest. They pulled me out of the water and dragged me into the raft. I collapsed against the rubber floor, coughing. Water came out. Air finally came in. But I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel much of anything. I sat there completely motionless. Soaked clothing stuck to my skin. Hands shaking in front of me. People were speaking to me, but I couldn't hear anything. I could see their mouths moving, but their voices sounded distant, as though I was still underwater. The strangest part was the river didn't stop. We were still in Class 3 rapids. The raft was still rising and dropping. Water was still hitting us. The guy was still calling instructions. The world didn't stop for me. My friends wanted to make sure I was okay, but they could not stop paddling without putting everyone in danger. So while I sat there trying to understand that I almost died, the trip simply continued. The river didn't pause for what happened. Eventually, I picked up my paddle again too. I don't remember making the decision, but sure enough, it happened. I only remember realizing that everyone else was compensating for me, and we still had to get through the section. We still had to make it. Later, they told me I'd been under for almost 30 seconds. 30 seconds doesn't sound long when you say it normally, but beneath that raft, time had no relationship to a clock. Every failed attempt felt complete. Every time the current pulled me back, it felt like I had started the entire experience over again. For a while afterward, even washing my face bothered me. The moment water covered my mouth and my nose, my body remembers before my mind did. My chest tightened, my breathing changed. Holding my breath became difficult. Submerging my head in water made me panic. And sometimes without warning, I would remember the exact instant my lungs took control and opened my mouth between the raft. I have not been whitewater rafting since. Part of me still wants to go back. There is a part of me that hates knowing that river changed my relationship with water. The part that wants to return, sit in another raft, and prove that that one terrible experience does not get to decide what I can do. But another part of me remembers what it felt like being beneath that rubber floor for so long. How quickly confidence becomes panic. How useless strength felt against the current I couldn't understand. And how nature continued moving as though my survival made no difference at all. Maybe going back would mean conquering the fear. Or maybe surviving once was the only warning the river ever intended to give me.